Listen to this. Honor your father and mother. Then you will live a long, full life in the land the Lord your God is giving you. Honor. What's a concept in 2021? What a concept. Honor. How do we make sense of that in a world that seems so dishonorable at times? But the question has to be, first of all, what is honor and how do I apply it in this world? Well, honor is pretty simple. Honor is just a sense of love, respect, and esteem for another person. But how do I apply it in this world? Well, I do want to suggest the Bible said there's a hierarchy of honor. So our highest priority is to honor God. Why is that important? It's very, very important when you think of this. What if we are told, what if Romans 13 says, honor those in authority authority over you, and it does, okay? And then someone in authority over us, the government in authority over us, asks us to do something that God would never have us do, that God commands us not to do. So let's talk about the elephant in the room. What if I'm a priest or a nun back during the residential schools, and the government says to me, this is what you need to do. You need to assimilate these boys and girls. You need to forcibly remove them from their home. You need to dishonor their families. You need to practice racism, and you need to allow abuse. At that point, I would have to say, God forbids that. God says we need to honor one another. God says every person has value. God says that everyone is equal in his eyes. So I could never do that. Do you understand? So when I talk about honoring, I'm not talking about blind obedience. I'm talking about love, respect, and esteem. But there's a hierarchy. And if anybody besides God, if anybody in that hierarchy says you need to do something contrary to the will of God, I say no. Okay, so what happens then though when I look around a world where so many times authority figures are not worthy of honor? Do I throw out the whole concept of honor? See, I don't think we can do that. I don't think it works that way. I don't think the Bible gives us that ability. Just because there are some that we can point to that we're not honorable doesn't mean that we can throw out the whole concept of honor. If you are going to choose to honor no one, you will end up like that queen. And your life will be mirror, mirror on the wall. Who's the fairest? Who's the smartest? Who's the rightest? Who's the bestest of them all? Me. And God's plan for you is so much bigger than that you would learn to honor. In fact, the way that you learn to honor those in authority over you will in some way reflect and set how you honor God. And when you honor God, you will be honored. On this planet, if you can honor your mom and dad, you can probably honor anybody. So what's that phrase? What is it that breeds contempt? Familiarity breeds contempt. Familiarity, that comes from the word family. See, it's easy to have contempt towards your parents because you know what? They're a different generation than you are. They see things from a completely different perspective than you do. And so God says, honor your mom and dad. If you can honor them, I think you can really get this concept down pat. Here's how it works. That God's power plays out in an environment of honor and faith. God's miracles play out in an environment of honor and faith. So God says here in his top 10, in commandment number 5, God says, honor your mom and dad. And if you do, you know what? Things are gonna go well for you. And I'm gonna move you into the future that I have planned for you. It's gonna be good. Honor your mom and dad. Number 1, the first way is acceptance. Acceptance. I would describe your mom and dad as imperfect people doing the best that they can. And I think you need to accept that. That's a radical concept because there's something in us, it's like a self-preservation mode that we kind of have a temptation that we want to divide the entire world into good people and bad people. Have you ever seen that? Like good people, bad people, define them, good people, bad people. And that's really hard because what happens when you really, really want to stick to that? What do you do when someone who fits in your good camp does something bad? Have you ever seen the mental gymnastics that someone goes through to explain that? See, if you can see that they're imperfect people doing the best they can, then you can move past acceptance and you can move into appreciation, affirmation. But before I do that, some of you are looking at me going, Mike, you don't know my mom and dad. They were not just imperfect people doing the best that they can. They were evil. they harmed me and they harmed others, and they're more than imperfect, they're evil. And first of all, I want to start out by saying I'm really, really sorry. That's never the way that this world was intended to be, and I'm so sorry that that's the way that your parents were. And really, if you grew up with evil parents, I really think there's only one way you can honor them, and that one way is to forgive them. It's really interesting because, as I said, if your parents treated you that way, I'm guessing that this isn't new for their family, right? Like they were treated that way. And what happens is you get like this really, really horrifying family tree where it just rolls on and on and on and on and on through the generations. You need to honor your mother and father by forgiving them because God's miracles play out in an environment of honor. And I know that God wants to do a miracle in your life. Here's what I know that God wants to do. God wants to stop the horrifying family tree from growing anymore. No more. And God wants to take an axe to the poisonous roots of that horrifying family tree so that he can plant a new tree of hope and grace and love and nurture and kindness. But the challenge is as God wants to take an axe to those roots, if you're clinging so tightly to the hurts of your past, God can't get an axe in, and so you got to let it go. No, but I'm saying God sees your heart, and if you step back and if you let it go, God will take an axe to the root. And as you honor your parents in the only way that you possibly could, by forgiving them, a miracle happens, and a new family tree is born, and everything changes with your generation. You might never see your parents again. It might not ever be safe or possible to do so, but you can still honor them by forgiving them. Number 2, you need appreciation. Like, I don't think you were really a picnic to raise. Do you think you were? You should appreciate that. You should appreciate that those imperfect people, that they did do the best that they could. You should appreciate the moments. You should appreciate the kindness. You should appreciate the efforts that they made. And number 3, you need affirmation. You need to articulate your appreciation. You need to tell your parents. And so in the midst of your busyness, you don't just need to accept them or appreciate them. You need to affirm them. You just need to pray for them. You need to speak life to them. Say thank you. Thank you for putting up with me. Thank you. And you need to do things. You need to go out of your comfort zone and make sure that even in the midst of your busyness, as they kind of get less busy, that you spend some time together. That's honoring. And what's the promise? The promise is this, that if you honor where honor is due, that things will go well for you, you know? And God will move you into the life, the abundant life that he has promised you. This is really convicting if you're a parent. So what's one of the most important things that I could ever do for my kids? I could be somebody who's easy to honor. And that's not easy. And I came up with 3 Ps. It's not any kind of exhaustive list, but the first P is just prayer. Pray for your kids. Be positive. It's amazing because, you know, your kids, they're imperfect people doing the best they can. That's a lot like you. Celebrate the things they do well. You could spend your whole life focusing on the things that they fall short in, but why don't you celebrate the things they do well? Apology. I think the easiest people to honor are people who honor us. And I think it's possible for a parent to honor a child. And I think one of the most honorable things that you could do as a parent is to go, hey, can I talk to you? I could have done that better. I'm sorry. I didn't handle that well at all. I'm really sorry. That's going to make you really easy for your kids to honor. And if you're easy to honor, you're going to be moving them towards that promise, which is things will go well for them.